So picture this, the most prestigious combat tournament in the galaxy, held every 50 standard years on the neutral space station Olympus Prime. Every species with half a brain cell and a decent weapons manufacturer sends their best warrior to compete in the Galactic Combat Championship. We're talking about beings who can bend reality with their minds, robots that shoot miniature black holes, and creatures that literally eat starlight for breakfast. The tournament arena is a massive dome that can simulate any environment imaginable. Desert, planets, asteroid fields, underwater cities, you name it. The stands are packed with representatives from over 300 species, all wearing their finest ceremonial robes and sporting enough advanced technology to power a small moon. The prize? Universal recognition as the galaxy's supreme warrior, plus bragging rights that last until the next tournament. Enter Jake Martinez, Earth's representative, walking into this cosmic circus with nothing but a compound bow slung over his shoulder and a quiver of arrows on his back. Not plasma arrows. Not quantum-tipped arrows. Not even arrows made from rare metals found in the core of dead stars. Just regular carbon fiber arrows with steel tips that any human archer could pick up at a sporting goods store. The silence in the arena is deafening. Then the laughter starts. Champion Crix Tal of the Zephyrian Empire, a 7-foot-tall blue-skinned warrior with more medals on his chest than a military parade, literally falls off his hover throne laughing. His weapon, the Stellar Decimator, hovers beside him like a metallic pet. The thing looks like someone crossed a rocket launcher with a disco ball and fed it uranium for breakfast. This is Earth's champion? Crix Tal wheezes between fits of laughter. Did they send us their court jester by mistake? His entourage joins in. There's Velox, his tactical advisor, whose 4 arms are constantly adjusting holographic displays showing weapon specifications. Then there's Nexus, the team's tech specialist, whose cybernetic implants blink faster when he's amused. Right now, they're strobing like a Christmas tree. The crowd's murmur grows louder. The crystalline collective representatives make sounds like wind chimes in a hurricane. The hive mind speaker drones buzz with what can only be described as alien snickering. Even the notoriously serious Titanium Brotherhood's delegation is making mechanical whirring sounds that pass for laughter in their culture. Jake adjusts his baseball cap and shrugs. Well, this is awkward. The tournament announcer, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Omnibus, extends his tentacles toward the various competitors. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary energy beings, welcome to the 500th Galactic Combat Championship. As always, we gather to celebrate the pinnacle of military technology and combat prowess. He pauses dramatically, his bioluminescent spots pulsing. This year's field includes the defending champion Crix Tal with his reality-warping Stellar Decimator, the mechanical Marvel unit Delta 9 with rapid-fire plasma arrays, and the legendary Brutus Ironhide whose exoskeleton has never been breached. Another pause. And representing the recently discovered species known as humans, we have Jake Martinez, wielding what appears to be a recreational hunting implement. The crowd erupts in fresh laughter. Someone in the Gamma Quadrant section actually falls out of their anti-gravity seat. Jake raises his hand. Question. Is there a gift shop? Because I'm pretty sure I'm going to want a t-shirt after this. The preliminary rounds begin in what can only be described as a technological arms race gone completely insane. Jake's first opponent is Zorketh from the Plasma Tribes, a warrior whose entire body is basically a walking energy weapon. The guy literally bleeds electricity and his war cry can shatter reinforced glass from 50 yards away. The arena transforms into a volcanic landscape complete with lava flows and toxic gas vents. Perfect for showcasing advanced environmental suits and energy-based weaponry. Terrible for anyone stupid enough to bring a bow to a space gun fight. The commentary team consists of 3 aliens who clearly peaked in high school. There's Blaster, a former champion whose glory days are way behind him, Quill, a tactical analyst who's never actually fought in combat, and Fizz, whose job seems to be making sound effects at inappropriate moments. Well, folks, Blaster announces, his voice dripping with condescension, this should be over quickly. Zorketh's plasma output can melt through starship hulls. I'm not sure what the human thinks his wooden stick is going to accomplish. Actually, it's carbon fiber, Jake calls out, testing his bowstring. But I appreciate the feedback. The match begins and Zor-Keth immediately starts shooting plasma bolts that turn solid rock into puddles of molten slag. Jake, meanwhile, disappears behind a rocky outcropping like he's playing the galaxy's most dangerous game of hide and seek. Typical primitive behavior, Quill observes, run and hide. How very human. What they don't see is Jake studying the arena layout, noting the wind patterns created by the lava flows, calculating angles and trajectories with the kind of precision that comes from years of hunting deer in the mountains of Colorado. When he finally emerges, he's positioned himself on higher ground with a clear line of sight to his opponent. The first arrow catches Zor-Keth completely off guard. It's not aimed at the alien himself, but at the rocky ceiling above him. The arrow triggers a small avalanche that forces Zor-Keth to dodge, disrupting his plasma charging sequence. Fascinating fizz makes a sound like a surprised hiccup. The human appears to understand environmental tactics. Jake's second arrow is different. He's attached something to the tip that looks suspiciously like a grenade. Because it is a grenade. A very small, very precisely timed grenade that explodes just close enough to Zor-Keth to overload his plasma reserves without actually killing him. The alien warrior goes down in a shower of sparks and confused electrical discharge. Winner, Jake Martinez of Earth, Omnibus announces, his tentacles quivering with what might be surprise. The crowd's reaction is mixed. Some species that specialize in tactical warfare are making approving noises. Others are clearly offended that their advanced technology was just defeated by what they consider a caveman with a pointy stick. Jake's next opponent is Vrex Tun, whose weapon is literally a handheld black hole generator. The arena becomes a zero-gravity asteroid field, presumably to showcase the weapon's ability to manipulate gravitational fields. This is more like it, Blaster says confidently. Vrex Tun's gravity manipulation technology is centuries ahead of anything Earth has developed. Watch as he creates localized gravitational anomalies that will crush the human instantly. Jake floats in the zero-G environment, looking remarkably relaxed for someone about to face a miniature black hole. When Vrex Tun fires his weapon, Jake doesn't try to dodge the gravitational distortion. Instead, he uses it. The arrow he fires gets caught in the weapon's gravitational field, but Jake has calculated the trajectory perfectly. The arrow slingshots around the artificial black hole, picks up tremendous speed, and hits Vrex Tun's weapon with enough force to cause a feedback loop that knocks the alien unconscious. That's two for the primitive human, Quill mutters, and his tone is noticeably less smug than before. By the time Jake has dispatched his third opponent, a crystalline being whose body can supposedly withstand supernova temperatures, the commentary team has gone from mocking to genuinely confused. Jake's victory involved using the arena's lighting system to create a focused beam that found the one specific frequency that caused the crystalline warrior to resonate like a wine glass hit by an opera singer. Ladies and gentlemen, Omnibus announces Jake Martinez of Earth advances to the quarterfinals. The crowd is no longer laughing. They're starting to pay attention. The quarterfinals bring Jake face to face with General Thok-Mor of the Vraxian Empire, a warrior whose ego is only matched by his complete faith in his technology. The general's armor is a masterpiece of defensive engineering, featuring overlapping energy shields that can supposedly deflect anything from laser blasts to antimatter projectiles. Human Thok-Mor booms, his voice amplified by his suit's speakers. You have been lucky so far. But luck ends here. My Aegis defense system has never been breached in over 300 battles. Jake examines his opponent's armor with the kind of casual interest most people reserve for checking the weather. Impressive. Must have cost a fortune. Let me guess, powered by a single fusion core? The most advanced fusion core in the galaxy, Thok-Mor replies proudly, capable of generating enough energy to power a small city. Right, Jake nods thoughtfully. And all that power runs through a single distribution network. Very efficient. The arena transforms into an urban environment, complete with skyscrapers and hover car traffic. Perfect for showing off advanced armor systems and energy weapons. Also perfect for someone who understands that the more complex a system is, the more ways it can fail. The commentary team is trying to maintain their professional composure, but there's definitely a note of uncertainty creeping into their voices. Well, folks, Blaster begins. General Thokmore's armor represents the pinnacle of Vraxian engineering. Each energy shield layer operates on a different frequency, making it virtually impossible to penetrate. Virtually impossible, Quill agrees. The human would need to somehow disrupt all 7 shield frequencies simultaneously, which is mathematically improbable given his primitive weaponry. Jake, meanwhile, is studying the urban landscape with the focused attention of someone planning a heist. He's not looking at the buildings or the traffic patterns. He's looking at the electrical infrastructure. When the match begins, Thokmore immediately activates his full defensive array. 7 layers of shimmering energy shields surround him like a rainbow-colored egg. His weapon, the Devastator Mark V, begins charging with ominous humming sounds. Jake doesn't attack. Instead, he starts shooting arrows at seemingly random targets around the arena. A traffic light here, a power junction there, an advertising hologram across the street. To the casual observer, it looks like panic firing. The human appears to be losing his composure, Fizz observes. His shots are becoming increasingly erratic. What they don't realize is that Jake is systematically targeting the arena's power grid. Every arrow carries a small electromagnetic pulse device, and each hit creates a brief but significant power fluctuation in the local electrical system. The 7th arrow hits the main power relay that feeds the arena's defensive systems. The resulting power surge travels through the entire network, creating a cascading electrical feedback that overloads Thokmore's fusion core. The general's armor doesn't explode dramatically. It just stops working. All 7 shield layers flicker and die, leaving him standing in a very expensive, very heavy suit of now useless metal. Jake's 8th arrow, fired while Thokmore is still trying to figure out what happened, hits the general's helmet with a satisfying thunk and knocks him unconscious. Winner, Jake Martinez of Earth, Omnibus announces, his tentacles now openly trembling with excitement. The crowd's reaction is evolving from confusion to genuine interest. Several species known for their tactical acumen are making notes. The betting odds, which started at roughly 1,000,000 to 1 against Jake, have dropped to merely improbable. Jake's next opponent is the mechanical warrior unit Delta 9, whose body is essentially a walking weapons platform. The Synthoid's rapid-fire laser arrays can unleash over 1,000 shots per second, each capable of punching through tank armor. This is it, Blaster declares. Organic reaction times simply cannot compete with synthetic precision. The human faces an opponent whose targeting system operates faster than biological thought. The arena becomes a maze of mirrors and reflective surfaces designed to showcase energy weapons and advanced targeting systems. Jake takes one look at the setup and starts laughing. "Oh, you guys are making this too easy," he says, pulling out an arrow with a matte black tip. Unit Delta 9's laser arrays activate, filling the arena with a deadly light show as thousands of laser beams bounce off the mirrors in complex patterns. The Synthoid's targeting computer works overtime, calculating trajectories and trying to lock onto Jake's position. Jake, meanwhile, shoots a single arrow. The arrow's matte black coating absorbs laser light instead of reflecting it. As it flies through the maze of mirrors, it creates a dark spot in the Synthoid's targeting grid. Unit Delta 9's computer, programmed to hit anything that moves, locks onto the only moving object it can properly track and unleashes its full firepower. At the arrow. The concentrated laser fire vaporizes the arrow instantly, but the sudden focal point of all that energy creates a feedback loop that overloads the Synthoid's own systems. Unit Delta 9 essentially shoots itself into unconsciousness. "That's 4, Jake says, adjusting his baseball cap. "Anyone else want to try?" The post-match interview is conducted by a nervous-looking reporter from the Galactic Sports Network. Jake Martinez, the reporter, begins. "You've now defeated 4 opponents using what many consider primitive technology. What's your strategy?" Jake considers the question seriously. "Well, you know how it is. Everyone's so focused on building bigger, better, more advanced weapons that they forget the basics. Like, What happens when you overload a fusion core? Or what do you do when your targeting computer gets confused? These are pretty simple problems with pretty simple solutions. But surely you must be concerned about facing stronger opponents in the later rounds? Not really, Jake shrugs. I mean, the stronger the opponent, the more complex their technology. And the more complex their technology, the more ways it can break. It's like that old saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. The reporter looks confused. I'm not familiar with that saying. Human thing, Jake explains. We've got a lot of sayings about beating people who are bigger and stronger than us. Comes with the territory. The semifinals pit Jake against Brutus Ironhide, the tournament's previous runner-up and a warrior whose reputation precedes him like a very large, very intimidating shadow. Brutus stands 9 feet tall and his exoskeleton is forged from materials harvested from the core of a neutron star. His weapon, the Annihilator, fires concentrated antimatter that can theoretically delete small moons from existence. Human Brutus rumbles, his voice like an avalanche in a bass drum factory. I have studied your previous matches. Your tactics rely on exploiting technological weaknesses. My armor has no weaknesses. My weapon has no complex systems to overload. I am quite simply unstoppable. Jake tilts his head, studying the massive warrior. You know, I had a gym teacher in high school who said the same thing. Right up until he got fired for betting on student arm wrestling matches. Your humor will not save you, Brutus declares. I am force incarnate. I am destruction given form. I am really insecure about something, Jake interrupts. Look, big guy, we've all been there. The whole I am unstoppable speech usually comes from people who are very worried about being stopped. What's eating you? The crowd falls silent. No one has ever interrupted Brutus Ironhide's pre-battle intimidation routine. What? Brutus stammers. Come on, Jake continues, 9 feet tall, armor made from neutron star material, weapon that can delete moons. That's not confidence, that's compensation. What happened? Did someone make fun of your height when you were a kid? Brutus's exoskeleton begins to glow with barely contained rage. You dare mock me? I'm not mocking, Jake says seriously. I'm just saying, maybe if you didn't feel the need to prove how tough you are every 5 minutes, you might actually be tough. You know what I mean? The arena transforms into a post-apocalyptic wasteland, complete with radiation storms and unstable gravity fields. It's designed to showcase the kind of extreme durability that Brutus's armor provides. The commentary team has given up all pretense of objectivity. Folks, Blaster admits, I have no idea what's about to happen. The human seems to be using psychological warfare, but against an opponent whose exoskeleton can withstand direct hits from capital ship weapons. I'm not sure strategy matters. The psychological approach is interesting, Quill observes. Brutus Ironhide has never faced an opponent who questioned his motivations rather than his abilities. When the match begins, Brutus charges forward with the kind of devastating directness that has made him famous. His Annihilator fires continuously, turning the wasteland into an even more wasteland. Craters appear where his shots land, and the very air seems to scream in protest. Jake, meanwhile, runs. Not the tactical repositioning he's used in previous matches, but full-on, undignified running away while Brutus pursues him around the arena like the galaxy's most dangerous game of tag. This is actually brilliant, Fizz realizes. The human is making Brutus chase him. All that armor and weaponry requires enormous amounts of energy. He's trying to exhaust his opponent's power reserves. But Jake's real strategy becomes clear when he suddenly stops running and turns to face Brutus. The massive warrior is breathing heavily, his exoskeleton's cooling systems working overtime. You're tired, Jake observes. All that heavy armor, all that running around, all that anger. Tell me, when's the last time you actually talked to someone? Not threatened them, not intimidated them, just talked? Brutus slows his charge, confusion evident even through his helmet's visor. What kind of question is that? A human one. Jake replies. See, we've got this thing called empathy. It's pretty useful in combat, actually. Helps you understand your opponent's weaknesses. And your weakness isn't your armor or your weapon. It's that you're really, really lonely. The arena falls completely silent. Even the radiation storms seem to pause. I am not lonely, Brutus protests, but his voice lacks conviction. When's the last time someone asked how you were doing? Jake continues. When's the last time you had a conversation that didn't involve threatening someone? When's the last time you laughed at something that wasn't someone else's pain? Brutus's massive form seems to shrink slightly. I don't. You don't remember, Jake nods. That's what I thought. You know what? I don't need to fight you. You're already beaten. You beat yourself a long time ago. Jake sets down his bow and walks toward Brutus with his hands visible and empty. You want to know what real strength is? It's admitting when you're hurting. It's asking for help. It's putting down the weapons and the armor and just being honest about who you are. Brutus stares at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, the massive warrior removes his helmet, revealing a face that looks far older and more tired than his reputation suggests. I yield, Brutus says quietly. I yield. The crowd erupts in chaos. No one has ever seen Brutus Ironhide surrender. The commentary team is completely speechless. Jake walks over and pats Brutus on the shoulder. You know what? After this tournament, you should get a hobby. Maybe join a book club. Meet some people who aren't trying to kill you. A book club? Brutus asks, as if the words are in a foreign language. Sure. I know some good ones. Science fiction, mostly. Stories about people who solve problems without blowing things up. You might like them. The championship match is held in the arena's most prestigious configuration, a massive gravity-neutral sphere that can simulate any environment in the known universe. The stands are packed beyond capacity, with representatives from every major species in the galaxy. The betting pools have reached astronomical figures, though Jake's odds have improved significantly from their original 1,000,000-to-1. Champion Crix Tal enters the arena like a walking light show, his advanced technology humming with barely contained power. The stellar decimator floating beside him has been upgraded specifically for this match, its quantum processors glowing with enough energy to power a small star. Citizens of the galaxy, Crix Tal announces, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the arena. Today you witness the end of an amusing distraction. The human has been lucky, but luck ends here. The stellar decimator doesn't just destroy matter, it removes it from existence entirely. There will be no clever tricks, no exploiting weaknesses, no psychological manipulation. There will only be victory, as is proper for the superior species. Jake examines the champion's weapon with professional interest. Quantum field manipulation, reality alteration capabilities, matter deletion functions. That's some serious hardware. Must have taken years to develop. Centuries, Crix Tal replies proudly. The finest minds in the Zephyrian Empire contributed to its creation. It represents the pinnacle of our technological achievement. Right, Jake nods. So if something went wrong with it, you'd be pretty much screwed. All your eggs in one basket, as we say. Nothing can go wrong with it, Crix Tal declares. It is perfect. The arena transforms into a cosmic battlefield, complete with floating asteroids, energy storms, and gravitational anomalies. It's an environment designed to showcase the kind of reality-warping power that the stellar decimator represents. The commentary team has brought in expert analysts from across the galaxy. The consensus is clear: Jake has finally met his match. Ladies and gentlemen, Omnibus announces the 500th Galactic Combat Championship final bout. In the red corner, defending champion Crix Tal of the Zephyrian Empire, wielding the stellar decimator. In the blue corner, the human Jake Martinez, wielding, well, the same bow he's been using all tournament. The crowd roars its approval. Even the species that were initially dismissive of Jake have developed a grudging respect for his unconventional approach. Contestants ready? Omnibus asks. Crick's Tal raises the stellar decimator, its quantum processors reaching full power. The weapon begins to warp space around it, creating visible distortions in the arena structure. Jake pulls an arrow from his quiver and examines it carefully. It looks exactly like all his other arrows, except for a small device attached near the tip. "You know," Jake says conversationally, "I've been thinking about your weapon. It's designed to manipulate quantum fields, right? Change the fundamental properties of matter by altering its quantum state?" "Precisely," Crick's Tal replies. "And in 3 seconds I will alter your quantum state to non-existence." "But here's the thing about quantum mechanics," Jake continues, knocking his arrow. "The more precisely you try to control quantum states, the more unpredictable they become. It's called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Basic physics." "Human physics," Crick's Tal scoffs. "Primitive understanding of advanced concepts." Maybe, Jake shrugs. "But here's another human concept you might not have considered: Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong." The match begins and Crick's Tal immediately fires the stellar decimator. The weapon's beam doesn't travel in a straight line. Instead, it warps space itself, creating a reality distortion that seeks out Jake's position. Jake fires his arrow. The arrow shouldn't be able to affect the quantum beam. It's just matter, and the beam is designed to unmake matter at the most fundamental level. But Jake's arrow carries something the Zephyrian engineers never anticipated: a small device that generates random quantum fluctuations. The device doesn't stop the beam or redirect it. Instead, it introduces just enough uncertainty into the quantum field to make the beam's targeting system confused about what it's supposed to unmake. The stellar decimator's beam, faced with contradictory quantum information, does what any sufficiently advanced system does when confronted with an impossible situation: it crashes. The weapon's quantum processors, operating at the edge of physical possibility, cannot handle the introduction of random variables into their carefully controlled equations. The feedback loop creates a cascade failure that propagates through the entire system. Crick's Tal stares at his weapon in horror as it begins to spark and smoke. That's impossible. The stellar decimator cannot malfunction. It's perfect. That's the problem with perfection, Jake replies. It doesn't leave room for the unexpected. And humans were pretty much nothing but unexpected. The stellar decimator explodes in a shower of quantum particles and shattered dreams. Crick's Tal is thrown backward, his armor systems overloaded by the feedback from his own weapon. Jake walks over to where the champion lies stunned on the arena floor. "You know what your real problem is? You thought being advanced meant being better. But advancement isn't about having the biggest, most complicated weapon. It's about adapting to new situations. And humans were really good at adapting." Winner and new Galactic Combat Champion, Jake Martinez of Earth, Omnibus announces, his tentacles practically vibrating with excitement. The crowd's reaction is unlike anything in the tournament's history. Some species are cheering, others are filing formal complaints, and a few are already trying to negotiate trade agreements with Earth. Crick's Tal struggles to his feet, his armor scarred and his pride thoroughly demolished. "This is impossible. You're a primitive species. You have no advanced technology, no sophisticated weapons, no understanding of quantum mechanics." "You're right," Jake agrees. "We don't have any of those things. But we have something better: the ability to figure things out as we go. You spent centuries building the perfect weapon. We spent centuries learning how to break things." The victory celebration is, by galactic standards, deeply underwhelming. While species across the galaxy are hosting elaborate ceremonies, analyzing combat footage, and completely revising their understanding of human capabilities, Jake Martinez is sitting in his temporary quarters on Olympus Prime, eating pizza and drinking beer. The pizza was delivered by a very confused Altarian food service drone who had never encountered a human before, and wasn't sure if the combination of cheese, tomato sauce, and processed meat was food or some kind of chemical weapon. The beer came from the station's diplomatic supply originally intended for the Terran embassy that doesn't exist yet. "This is good pizza," Jake tells the floating camera drone that's broadcasting his victory interview across the galaxy. I mean, the cheese is a little synthetic, and I'm pretty sure the pepperoni is made from some kind of space fungus, but honestly, I've had worse at truck stops in Nevada. The interviewer, a professional journalist named Quex Ara, whose species communicates primarily through color-changing skin patterns, is struggling to maintain her composure. Her skin keeps shifting between the colors that indicate confusion, admiration, and what can only be described as existential crisis. Champion Martinez, she begins, her translator converting her chromatic language into standard galactic. The entire galaxy wants to know. How did you defeat opponents whose technology was centuries ahead of your own? Jake takes a long sip of his beer and considers the question. Well, it's like this. Everyone was so focused on building better weapons that they forgot the most important rule of combat. The best weapon is the one that works when you need it to work. In simple things, they tend to work pretty consistently. But surely you must have had some advanced strategy, some hidden technology? Not really, Jake shrugs. I mean, I did bring some explosive arrows and a few electromagnetic pulse devices, but you can build those with stuff from any hardware store. The real secret is that humans are really good at figuring out how things work, and once you understand how something works, you can usually figure out how to break it. Quex Ara's skin flashes the color that indicates deep confusion. But the stellar decimator was considered unbreakable. It was the most advanced weapon ever created. That was its problem, Jake explains. See, the more advanced something is, the more things can go wrong with it. It's like having a car with 1,000 different computer systems. Sure, it can do amazing things, but if one sensor goes bad, the whole thing stops working. My bow, on the other hand, is basically a stick that bends. Not much to go wrong there. The interview is being broadcast to every inhabited system in the galaxy, and the reactions are varied and intense. On Zephyria Prime, the Emperor is dealing with riots as citizens demand to know how their perfect champion was defeated by a primitive savage. On Vrax, military scientists are frantically studying recordings of Jake's matches, trying to understand how their most advanced defensive systems were bypassed by arrows. Meanwhile, on Earth, the news is being received with a mixture of pride and terror. The President is giving a speech about humanity's triumph in the galactic arena, while the Pentagon is quietly freaking out about the fact that they now have to deal with intergalactic politics. So what's next for humanity? Quex Ara asks. Will Earth be joining the Galactic Council? Will you be sharing your combat techniques with other species? Jake finishes his pizza and wipes his hands on a napkin. Well, first I'm going to go home and take a very long nap. Fighting the galaxy's best warriors is exhausting. After that, I think I'll go hunting. It's deer season back home, and after all this high-tech stuff, I'm looking forward to something simple. But surely you understand the implications of your victory? Earth is now recognized as a major power in the galaxy. Your species will be invited to join the Galactic Council, participate in interstellar trade, contribute to galactic defense. That sounds like a lot of paperwork, Jake says. I'm just a guy who's good with a bow. All that political stuff is way above my pay grade. I'm sure Earth's got plenty of people who are better at that kind of thing than I am. The interview continues for another hour, with Quex Ara asking increasingly complex questions about human psychology, Earth's technological capabilities, and humanity's plans for galactic expansion. Jake's answers remain consistently simple and direct, which seems to confuse the sophisticated alien journalist more than any complex strategy would. After the interview, Jake is approached by representatives from dozens of species wanting to negotiate everything from trade agreements to military alliances. He politely refers them all to Earth's diplomatic corps, which is frantically trying to figure out how to handle first contact with 300 different alien civilizations at once. The real lesson of Jake's victory spreads across the galaxy like wildfire, though different species interpret it in different ways. Some see it as proof that advanced technology is overrated. Others view it as evidence that humans are a species to be feared and respected. A few philosophical species use it as an example of how the universe tends to favor the unexpected over the predictable. But Jake's own interpretation is simpler and more profound. Humans don't win, because they're stronger or smarter or more advanced than everyone else. They win because they refuse to be intimidated by things that look impossible, and they're too stubborn to know when they're supposed to give up. As he packs his gear for the trip home, Jake takes one last look at his compound bow. It's the same weapon he's been using for years, made from materials that any human archer would recognize. No quantum processors, no reality warping capabilities, no advanced AI targeting systems. Just a stick that bends and arrows that fly straight. "You know what?" he says to the bow. "I think we did pretty good." The bow, being an inanimate object, doesn't reply. But if it could, it would probably agree that sometimes the best way to solve a complex problem is with a simple solution, delivered with precision and a healthy dose of human stubbornness. And across the galaxy, in laboratories and war rooms and council chambers, the greatest minds of hundreds of species are trying to figure out how to defend against an enemy whose primary weapon is the ability to think outside the box. Good luck with that.